Can you go into more detail about your asset identification technique or methodology? Is it a fingerprint? Is it
So, so what we've done over the last several months with this group, we brought together a really great group of smart folks from both the user side of things and also from the vendor side of things who understand the technologies a little bit better. And we've brought them all together and talked about number one, what identifiers do we want to use, and that was the easy part really. We settled on Ad ID for advertising and IDER out of the Hollywood community for non-advertising assets. And what we've been looking at is trying to figure out what technologies could be brought to bear to embed those IDs in such a way that they'll survive all the various transformations that take place. As we know, the video that you see, for instance, on your phone is different than what you would see on your big screen. And there's all kinds of equipment that the video goes through to get there. And that equipment's job is to get it there in the most efficient way possible. And that means stripping out anything it thinks is not important. This might fall in that category. So we need to make sure that what we do survives all that. So we've looked at such things as watermarking, both watermarking the audio, watermarking the video, looking at fingerprints, again, both audio and video fingerprints. And we've looked at some other methods of embedding data in with video signals. And each one has its pros and cons. Watermarking is great. It's been used quite a bit, and so has fingerprinting in the area of automated content recognition. But I think what we found so far is no single solution solves the whole thing. And I think that's to be expected. If there was an easy solution to this, the business would have figured that out by now. So there's some finesse required in looking at all the different technologies that are involved here and deciding which one or which ones might help us to accomplish this goal of identifying content, no matter how it gets to viewers.
are you finding that one form of asset identification is better, or is there a workaround to some of them? What have you found so far?
Yeah, really, I think it's fairest to say that most of the responses that we got were around audio watermarking, but there were some other very interesting technologies that were presented to us, and audio watermarking is great, but it doesn't necessarily address all the needs that we've identified within this group. There's a lot of use cases that people would like to see satisfied, and audio watermarking does address a lot of them, but not all of them. As we all know, fingerprinting is a cool way of doing things, where you don't actually have to embed anything in there, and you're just identifying what the content was. But again, it's not perfect either. So, I think what I would expect to see is not necessarily the selection of one technology as being the magic bullet for this. It may be a combination of technologies that allow us to satisfy all the requirements that the media companies have asked us to satisfy.
I know that there are companies that are extracting data from different types of televisions that are using video identification, what is on the screen.
Yes.
You mentioned that you might be using audio identification. How would this work in real life if you have an audio ID and somebody is pulling off the video ID?
We kind of see that as very complementary. The analogy I like to use is belt and suspenders. By identifying the content in a couple of different ways, we can be absolutely certain of the identification of that piece of content. And that's really the end goal of what we're trying to get to, is knowing absolutely unequivocally that commercial XYZ aired, and it aired in its entirety. And that's why, like I said earlier, we're looking at a variety of technologies that any one technology might not solve this all on its own. But using a variety of technologies, I think we can solve this problem and unequivocally say, yes, this particular commercial aired, and it aired in its entirety at this time, on this distribution outlet.
What about competing asset identification systems like Nielsen or Google? How will that work?
So we don't necessarily see this as directly competing with them. One of the requirements that we identified early on is that whatever we do can't interfere with existing practices that are in place right now. We don't want to do something that'll trounce all over the Nielsen watermark, because that's used that is very critical to people's operations right now. So whatever we do, we see it as being complementary to whatever is in there already. Again, we can't. It's a requirement. We can't step on what's already there. Also, what we're doing goes, even though this can be used as a measurement tool, it goes much beyond that. There are other things that identifying the content will enable for broadcasters, and so that's just really a small part of it. It's perhaps the most visible use case that we've got here, but there are several other use cases that can be brought to bear by this, and there's a lot of power that you can get by being able to identify the content beyond just measurement.
There are so many companies under the radar today working on some pretty fascinating aspects of cross-platform measurement. Can you speak to that in your experience in working on this asset identification project?
Yeah, to me, that's been one of the really fun things about working on this. Is that I thought going into this that I knew all the players, and you kind of have some expectations about who's going to come to you with what, but it's been really surprising to see some of the people who have come out of the woodwork that you've never heard of, and they have some really innovative ways of addressing this, and so that's been very interesting to get some exposure to them, and it's very encouraging for the future of our business to see some of the innovations that are coming up in this area, and see if we can work those into what we're doing here with this project.